Hello, welcome back to Beginner Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I want to do a bit of improvisations with virtual nodes. So basically, we can come out with something interesting. So the result is probably something that's a little bit like this. Um, if you look at this, it might seem complicated, but it's not really that complicated. In fact, a lot of things that seems complicated is actually really simple, while things that's really simple is actually complicated. So when you first open Blender, you see the default cube, the lamp, the camera and the lamp. Normally, I just delete all of them. So we have nothing in the scene. And let's play with virtual nodes. And we're just gonna be using the box and matrix node. Oops, not matrix normal, matrix in node. Okay. So these are really powerful actually if you play around with it. So there's also matrix math, any matrix nodes, and a simple geometry object generator. So we have nothing in the scenes, and with a bit of magic, in the latest Sverchok you can actually control click, and automatically it will generate this viewer node, and you still have nothing in the scenes. So it's almost like this is just like a description. So this node tells you it should generate a box. Okay, so we have matrix slot here and matrix input here. Those are actually kind of similar. And what do you need to plug in? You can plug in matrix in, but like if you can click here and you get this nodes, and you can do the location translate, you can do scaling, you can play around with the angle axis. We actually have radian, degree, and this one there's a new one. So these nodes are super useful, and it's the matrix, despite of its name, it's just like a transform node, but it's actually really powerful because we can say we have line, for example. We can plug in the line into this guy and increase the number. Suddenly we have a bunch of cube, but there is still nothing in the scene, and until we actually hit bake, suddenly we have 7 cubes, and each one of them already being translated. Well, actually, in this case, seems like they are applied. Okay, the position seems to be applied, but their pivot is still at the center. So that's also kind of interesting. So that's if we plug in line. So that means the position of the box is controlled by the vertex of this line, right? So that's easy, and we can actually do things like randomize. Okay, right, we can use line, we can use something like grid, grid or plane. So just plug this here. You can see they are arranged in the grid. So it's a 2D grid. We can select X, Y, Y, Z, and Z, Y. You might be wondering what happens if we actually use line and plug this into this matrix. So you see it's actually kind of overriding or actually influencing the cube. What if you actually merge or join the mesh over here? And then we plug in the line and let it grow in the Y. So suddenly we have kind of like a 3D cubes, lots of them, and we can bake it. If we bake it, you can see each one of them separated by this. It's not like it's separate cubes. So that's also kind of interesting. If we randomize the color, you can see each one of them is different, but each one of them is already like box that's arranged in the cube. Okay, so let's get rid of that for now. So we play around with the line and the plane. Of course, you can also use something like a vector key, but that's probably not something that I want to do today. But you can play with that as well, because this will generate the kind of like a volumetric, not volumetric, like they are arranged in a 3D vector positions, 3D grid. All right, so what's interesting about this, of course, with the matrix, you can also play around with the scale of the cube. And since you have this ability, how about if we actually use a circle and use matrix normal over here. Let's see if we can create a more interesting arrangement. So circle, location, and normal, plug this there. So we have this. Let's increase the size of the cube. Okay, let's play around with the scaling. So currently doesn't look okay. This one is this is the one that I want to create. So the box suddenly arranges something that's definitely much more interesting than before. And for each one of them, we can actually spin it. Let me try. Okay, it's spinning it like that. Well, it's not what I was thinking, but still, there's so much variations that you can do. So you might have been seeing this viewer node, but you want the actual objects, because so far we're generating nothing until we actually bake it, or we use a viewer bmesh. And now we have an actual objects, and this one we can add a cavity or shadow, some kind of shading. So this one has been scaled, and I think that this arrangement, we have unlimited ways to rotate or scale these objects. I think I probably scale it in the wrong way, so let's do it. Let's do it again. So we have angle control here, we have the matrix circle. What if we plug in the matrix normal over there? Let's see. Let's make the Y up, the Z is up, and the X oh yeah, by the way, with the box, we also have control over the origin center, so we can actually use bottom or corner. So that's the size control. We have the resolution control for the box. That's actually an interesting animation, even though I want to actually rotate it in a different axis. So how do I do that? Maybe we can mix the matrix using matrix math. This one is still something that I often trial and error. So somehow we have a skewing happenings. Let's delete this, recreate the matrix, and let's do some kind of rotations in the different axes. All right, so yeah, let's give that kind of animations, and we can just plug that in. Maybe multiply this with a number, so we have a bit of animations there. And if you look at each one of the cube, is something that you can actually bake. So with the radius, let me think what else we can do here. So let me save actually. File, save as circle and cube and matrix. If you actually if you're doing like a mesh join, you can actually make something that's a little bit more interesting, like you have circle and another circle. Let me try doing that. So it's now starting to get slightly complicated, but there's one thing that I haven't told you. There's another one, matrix apply. So you can do a matrix apply over here. So you still have the same thing. However, you can have another circle plug into this matrix. Yeah, this is what I was trying to show you actually from the very beginning. Suddenly we have like a multiple level of matrix transforms. Yeah, and you can animate the radius, and you get a quite interesting animation. So we have 3 levels of matrix: something that's coming into the box, something that's being applied and creates that elements, and another matrix that you use to make another arrangement of this circle. These make it really quite powerful, I think. I have another example that I made last night. It's this box and circle, but slightly different. So this is maybe I should share with you as well. If I use bmesh viewer, plug this in, and this guy, you can see if I randomize the color. This is just a bunch of box that's rotating. So using 2 levels of matrix. This one, even though it's kind of complicated, it's not actually complicated as well. So this is like how I arrange the box in circular fashion, but in a different way, where I'm using matrix normal and matrix multiply, but there is a map range. Oh, okay, here I'm actually using sine oscillator with a period. Yeah, the whole thing is kind of abstract, right? But still, it's kind of super interesting for you to try. Like I said, what's happening here with the nodes, they're all like kind of like a description of the scene, where in fact in the scene there is nothing until you use the bmesh viewer, or you use if you hold Control and click, you have this viewer, temporal viewer. So they are all kind of like abstract, and you can assign a matrix, you can scale, and you have another thing altogether. So yeah, I think it's a very powerful way of working. Hopefully you find this useful actually. And this is only using a single box node that you can replace with cylinder or other geometry, because it's just a description. You just tell Blender, okay, with the Fetchwork nodes here, create a box, arrange it in the circular fashions, and then rotate it using its local rotations, rotate it, and then yeah, you get this kind of abstract looking animations, and it's actually quite interesting, visually interesting. even though this is just a simple basic example. But you can always replace this box with anything and the whole scenes will actually change. All right. So thanks again for tuning in. Let me know what you think and I'll see you next time. Bye.